Hey everyone, today I'm going to do a little tutorial for you guys on how I created this little shampoo cap. It's got two parts to it. It's got this top cap part. I'm calling the bottom section the lid, this top part the cap. You can see this moves up and down. I've got threads that match the shampoo bottle. I am going to do that in a separate video, so this will be basically part one. I'm going to model everything but these threads, so you can see how I do this, and then when I try to figure out a good setup for showing you guys how to measure the threads on that bottle, I'll show you how I do that. But anyway, so how this cap works is the bottle is inserted in here, obviously threaded in, and then you can set it upside down so all the shampoo comes to the bottom so you don't waste any. And if we turn on our little section analysis up here in the browser, that just kind of cuts it in half so you can see what's going on internally. Here's that cap part moving up and down. And basically how this works is this cap, so let me turn off the lid. This cap has, and I'll turn off our analysis so you can see the full picture. It has kind of an inner tube and the outer tube, and turn these back on. The idea is that this is a very, very small space here, so this creates friction. So you can move this cap and it'll stop at any position. And it has these little pipes along the outside that catch it, so it can't move past that. And when you first assemble it, you'll have to kind of force it over past each other. There'll be kind of a snap, and then once it's in, without a lot of force, it'll pretty much stay here. And of course, this top section is where the shampoo or conditioner come out. So I'm probably not going to give you my exact dimensions. I'm just kind of showing you what I've already designed. And the only thing I'm going to keep the same are this thread part, because later I want to show you guys how to do this, match those threads. But everything else might be a little different than this. And you know, I was kind of thinking if I should actually give exact dimensions, but you know, every printer has different tolerances, and my tolerances may be different than yours. So like I have found out, let's see if I can even zoom in close enough for this. So this tolerance, if you go down here, is 0.015. I found that spacing for this friction fit on my printer to be perfect. It may be different on your printer. So if you follow along this tutorial to make one for yourself, you can play around with all of the tolerances. So okay, so the only thing I really want to measure off this is the height of this lid part. So if you click on one edge, hold shift on the keyboard and click on this bottom edge, so we have two edges selected. You can look down at this bottom section and it's 15 millimeters tall. Similarly, if we click on the outside edge, hold shift and click on the inside edge, we can see this is 2 millimeters thick. Let me turn on the analysis here, and I believe this is also 2 millimeters thick. The only thing we have to check is the outside diameter, so we can click on this edge, and that's giving me the radius, so let's click on the inside. It's giving me radius because it's not completing the circle, it's just choosing one little edge. I guess we can just double that. But if we click on the inside, we have a inside diameter of 33, which means the outside diameter is 37, which 18 times 0.5 times 2, or 18.5 times 2 is 37. Okay, so let's get creating this. And we may come back and reference this as we're going so we can kind of see what we're making. And I guess one thing I didn't show very well is this inner portion. You can see how we have some wings kind of suspending this in air. And I did create a washer. One thing I should explain before going forward, 3D printing this will require supports. It's not too big a deal if this is a super clean surface, because this little TPU washer in white here will kind of cover that surface. I do have a AMS, so my printer can multicolor print, so I will print this in either PETG or PLA and then use the opposite as support. So this should be really, really clean. Now, one design thing you could change is you can see this surface is nice and flat. You could kind of bring this surface up at a 45-degree angle, which would make this taller. And then this inside surface would be at a 45-degree angle, which means you wouldn't need supports anymore. However, that may get tricky because this washer kind of keeps the liquid from leaking out the lid portion here. And so that might not be a good idea. I don't know how you would do that washer without supports, but okay, anyways, let's get going. So I'm going to go start a new design. The first thing we're going to do is create a cylinder, and we're going to start on that bottom lid section. And I think I said this is 37 millimeters. I'll hit enter. And then it wants the other height, which I believe was 15. I'm sorry. I believe it's 15. Let's hit OK. I'm going to double check that. 15. Okay, so now that we have that base cap formed up with the cylinder tool, we can use the shell tool here, and we'll click on the bottom surface. We want a 2 millimeter thickness, so you can either type it in the little window that pops up here or on the window that pops up over here. So we'll just type in 2 and hit OK. And before we go any further, we're going to set up a section analysis. I set this up on almost everything I design, unless it's super basic. But basically, go to Inspect, Section Analysis, and it's going to a little window is going to pop up, asking you what plane. And let's work off that front plane. It opened up that view from the back. So if you go on this window, you can flip it and hit OK. I suggest you play around with the section analysis tool. Whenever you use one of these tools or these modifiers up here, whenever you click on one, a little window pops up that gives you kind of all the different options. I'm just choosing the basic section analysis, but you can rotate this in any position you want in either direction and get a really cool analysis of what's going on. You can set up multiple analysis. You can move this front, back, right? So we just need the basic one, so I'm just going to leave it there. But the reason I do that is because I like seeing what's going on, right? Like when this analysis is off, so you can see after we created it, it shows up in your browser over here, and you can toggle that on and off. If you have more than one set up, you click on this little arrow to go down, and you'll see all of them listed here, so you can turn that one off. And this isn't getting rid of the model. It's just kind of showing you a sneak peek. It's hiding half of that model, and so we can see what's going on. So let's turn that analysis off. So we've got that basic shape there, and now we need to do this top section. So let's create another sketch. Oh, I'm sorry, let's not create a sketch. So I'm going to hit escape. We're going to create another sphere or another cylinder. So instead of selecting one of the planes, I want to put this next cylinder on top of this one. So I can just click on the surface of that cylinder, and you can see little crosshairs come up. I'm going to put that in the middle of on the origin. Click once, and then let go of the click and just move your mouse out. So I'm just making this up at this point. Let's go 12. Well, let's go 14. And hit enter. And that seems really, really small compared to my other ones. We may go jump off some measurements over here. So what do we do for this one? 22. So that looks way better. So let's go to create cylinder, click on the center, type in 22, hit OK. And I think where I got that 12 is I made this 12 tall. And we can join this. Whenever you are creating a solid body and it touches another solid body, because remember we made the cylinder on top of this one, it's always going to have join selected, and that's going to join these two as one body. You could create a new body to keep them separate. There's no reason to in this case, but just keep that in mind. Okay, and if we go to the browser over here, you can see now we still just have one body. let's see, I probably should have joined these together before doing that shell command, because now I've got this weird situation here, and that's not that big a deal. I think we can probably just hit shell again and see if it, let's see if it shells it out. So it doesn't. So what we can do is, if we go back on our timeline here, I'm just going to delete that shell command, and you can see it's gone now. And so now if I go to shell again, I can click on more than one surface. So every time you click a modifier, like I said, this window pops up and it kind of gives you directions on how to use it. So what it wants you to do first is usually highlighted in blue. So it's wanting me to select the faces or body. So if I click on a face, you can see I have one selected, and that will be the opening of the shell. But if I click on two faces, so now I have this the bottom and the top selected. You can see it shows I have two selected, and if you made a mistake, you can hit this X and undo it. So let's click the bottom and the top, and you don't have to worry about tangent chain in this case. I'll explain that in a different video when it comes up. Shell type, this just makes the inside edges a little different, and then the thickness of the wall, so we'll go 2 millimeters, and I'll hit OK. And now you can see we've got that opening. So let's go to analysis, and there we are. And keep in mind, as I'm making these videos, I do not rehearse these. These are unscripted, so you're kind of designing with me. Even though I have designed this before, I may change how I do things in this other one. So I may fumble around a little bit, which kind of makes the format of these videos a little longer. But I think there's something to be said about designing along with someone instead of them just showing you what to do, right? Because I may make mistakes, and then I can show you how I would go back and fix them or change them. So, okay, turn analysis off. So we have the basic shape. I'm not going to do these arms yet, just because I don't want them getting in the way of designing my cap, right? I don't want these little legs or arms, whatever, just constantly in the way of me working around. So we'll save these for last. And so we'll do the cap next. And the one thing I'm going to do differently than what I did in this model, let's turn that washer off so that's not confusing, is other than this allowance right here between the cap and the lid section, I'm not going to create any tolerances, and I'm going to add those tolerances later. I'm going to keep those tolerances at the end of the design, because that's what you're going to end up changing when you print this, and you might find that something's too tight or too loose, and then you can go back and change those tolerances. If your tolerances, here's my timeline on this. You can see I can scroll all the way to the end and all the way to the beginning. Here I'm way at the beginning. If I start doing my tolerances way in the beginning, and then I do all of this work to get to the end, and now all of a sudden I have to change those tolerances, it starts just getting a little messy. So just keep that in mind. And you might work differently, but that's how I'm going to do it. So let's make the cap. So we've got, if I select on this ring, this was 12 millimeters. Okay, so the cap section, remember this is going to be the lid. So let me just label that now so we don't get confused. The cap section is also going to have 2 millimeter thick walls. And you know that right there, actually, I might change my mind. This cap has to, when you first put it on, there has to be a little give here, because it has to snap around these pipes. So it has to kind of be able to deform a little bit. So you can see, let's see if this is 2 millimeters thick. It's actually, I have this cap at 1.5 millimeters thick, and this at 2 millimeters thick. And I think the reason I did that is so this cap section can kind of deform a little. So let's do the 1.5. And again, this is stuff you're gonna figure out as you design stuff. You know, I probably on my first iteration of this design made this 2 millimeters thick, and then realized it was too thick and changed it to 1.5, which gave me a little bit more play. So so let's do another sphere here, and let's see if I can get my math right on the fly here. So this is 22 millimeters thick. Or I'm sorry, there's a diameter of 22 millimeters, and I want 1.5 millimeters this way and 1.5 millimeters this way. But then I also have to add that tolerance. So I'm actually just going to make it 2 millimeters. So I'm going to have to double that to 4 millimeters. So we need 26 millimeter diameter. I hope that made sense, and I hope I did that right. So let's get on cylinder here. We're going to click on that surface because that's where we want it to start. So I click that surface. I see my crosshairs. I'm going to go to origin, drag out. There's my 22. So we're going to go, what did I just say? 26. Hit the button or hit the mouse, and now it wants us to do the height. Now you can see this is in red because I'm kind of intersecting an existing body, and we're not going to want to do that. We're going to want to new body this. We don't want to join, right? Because this is going to be a separate part. So pay attention to the little window that pops up. And right now it's at 10 millimeters tall, but the lid was 12 millimeters tall, and we need some space there for the thickness of that. So let's go 14 millimeters, and actually, you know what? Let's go 15. I'm going to hit OK, and I'll show you why here in a second. So let's just name this cap, and let's turn on the section analysis. You can see it is a solid body, so we can get rid of the lid section. We'll click on just the bottom, and we'll hit shell, and we'll do 1.5. You can type it in and hit OK. And let's see how we did with analysis. Let's turn on our lid. So there you can see we've got a nice spacing here. Let's see what spacing we have here. Let's click on this. Let's click on this edge, and we have 0.5 millimeters here. So that seems okay. And what's our spacing here? Remember, you click on a surface, hold shift on the keyboard, click on another surface, and we have 1.5 millimeters here. And that's probably more than we need. And you know what? This is how you would change that. So it's much easier to change this right here than this whole thickness, since we've got a 1.5 millimeter. Let's keep that the same. So we can click on this, hit E for extrude, and let's go up 0.5, hit enter. And now we have a nice 1 millimeter gap here. Okay, so we have got our, let's turn off the lid section and let's worry about the cap. So we've got that of the cap. Now if you go back to our existing model, we'll turn the lid off, turn our analysis off. Now we need to create this inner ring. And one other thing to keep in mind, remember I said I was going to make those tolerances or change those tolerances at the end. One other thing I'm going to do wait for till the end is all of these like chamfers and fillets. You can see I have all these rounded edges here. I'm also going to save that for the end, because just like for my tolerances, if I want to come back and change dimensions here, these chamfers just kind of complicate things. Now, if you know what you're doing, it doesn't complicate it too much, but you might as well just work with a very clean design and then add the details later, right? So let's make that inner ring. So we've got our lid, and let's turn analysis on. This is why it's so important for the analysis. So remember, this inner tube or inner pipe, I'm not sure what you'd call it, is the same diameter of the inner pipe of the cap. So if we click on that rim, it is 18 millimeters. So we need an 18 millimeter tube here. So you could do it with the cylinder command, but I'm going to do it a little different here. So I'm going to click on this. Actually, I'm not going to click on that surface yet. I'm going to draw a sketch. So remember, this is 18 millimeters. So let's turn off that cap. I'm sorry, let's turn off the lid, and we can just turn analysis off for now. So let's create a sketch right up here. And we don't want to click on the plane. I want to draw it right on the surface of this cap where I'm going to draw that tube. So we'll click there. I can hit C on the keyboard, C for cat, for circle, and move to the origin. It kind of snaps to it. Click the mouse, and I'm going to hit 18 millimeters. There's a cool little, you could draw another circle here, but I'm going to, because we want a thickness of this pipe, right? But there is an offset tool that you can click on your line you just made, and it's 1 millimeter thickness. So but we want to go in the opposite direction. So let's do negative 1.5, and then we can hit enter. And there is our sketch that we have drawn on the surface of the inside of this cap. So we can finish sketch. Let's turn analysis back on, and let's turn lid back on. And now we want to I tell you what, this will be a good learning experience here. We don't want to turn this lid back on. I'm going to show you why. When I hit E for extrude and click on this surface and I pull this up, see what it's doing? It's joining with this. And you could go and hit new body, but now it's not connected to either body that we have. It's just its own new body, and we'd have to go back and combine it and do a lot of extra work. So let's hit cancel. What you want to do is make sure anything that you don't want it to join to is turned off. So we can turn that lid off, or when I say turn off, I mean hide, right, with this little eyeball. It's still there. So now if I click that surface and hit E for extrude and come up, let's just go 10 millimeters. We're just kind of playing around. Now you can see it's on join, and it joined with the cap. So I can turn that sketch off now, and now it's one body, right? And so now you can turn the lid back on, and there is our nice friction fit. And there is no space there, right? So if you're 3D printing that, that won't work. You do need some space there, but we're going to do that later. So there is our basic structure so far. If we go back to our other one, you can see that's a lot more complicated, but we've got the basics of it down, right? And one thing I'm not going to show in this are this little diamond pattern. And you know, I guess if you really want to see this, maybe I'll make a little shorts video on it. But I have found that once I 3D printed this out, I didn't really like how it looked. I thought I would need it for, you know, some finger gripping, but this little lip here is plenty. You don't need any of this texture here for your finger grip. And if you look at other shampoo and conditioner bottles, they don't have any weird patterns on theirs, and it's always smooth. And I think the reason for that is it's going to be in a moist, you know, damp bathroom all the time. And I think all of these little spaces are just more spaces for mold and grime and stuff to fit into. So I'm going to leave that out, and I think you should too if you're going to make this yourself. So, okay. So I think the next thing we should do, since we have that lid pretty much, or at least the structure of that lid pretty much done. Obviously there's a few more things like this little lip here, but we can do that later. Let's do that inner spindle. So let's go back to this. Sorry, I'm kind of switching back and forth on you a lot. If I get rid of the cap, you can see we have this kind of floating spindle here, and 3 little arms or gussets or whatever I'm not sure really what you would call those, that are kind of suspending it in the middle. And you need that because that's what allows the shampoo to come through. This spindle sticks up, and if I turn the cap on, it gets lodged right in that hole to kind of stop it from coming out until you pull it up. So let's create that. So we can turn the cap off because we're going to just be working with the lid section here. And we want to create another cylinder right in the middle, floating in air here. And so you might ask, how might you do that? And there's a few ways, right? You could draw a sketch. We know it's going to be in line with this surface right here. So you could draw a sketch here and then draw a circle. But we can just use the cylinder command or the cylinder modifier. So if we go to cylinder, we're going to click on this surface, which starts it on that plane. And we can click here right in the center, drag it out. Let's just go, we'll just keep it at 6. And that might be too big from I guess that's about 1/4 inch, so that's probably okay. So you can see this arrow is pointing in this direction, and it's a positive number. Well, we want it to go in the other direction. We want it to come up here. And so you could either, well, we know this is 12 millimeters, so we could just type in -12. But the cool thing about the E or the extrude command, I'm sorry, we're not in the extrude command, we're in the cylinder. You can just click on the surface, and I think this is true for cylinder as well. So I'm just going to click here because this is where I want it to stop. see how I click that and it just automatically lined up with that. When you use the extrude modifier, you can do the same thing. And actually it wasn't 12. Look, negative 14.5. I'm not sure. I thought we made this 12. Doesn't matter. It's even here. If we do analysis, there we go. Oh, it's 14.5 because we forgot to add this section. And is that 2 millimeters? 2 millimeters. This is, oh, we added that 0.5 millimeters here. That's why. Sorry, I was getting confused why that was 14.5, but it's 2 plus 12.5. Remember, we added 0.5 millimeters here. So, okay, let's turn analysis off so you can just see what's going on. There's our spindle. And now let's create those little arms. There are probably tons of ways of doing this. I'm going to do what I usually do, or how I know best, right? There's tons and tons of tools in Fusion 360. You have to use the tools that you know. So I'm going to create this from a sketch, and let's turn on, or let's hit sketch, and I'm going to work from the front. So I'm going to rotate this so the front is kind of facing forward, and we're going to draw it right, that sketch right in the center. Okay, and so remember that plane that I just drew the sketch on is right along this red line. So we're drawing something right through the center of this body. So if I go to the front view again, I want to outline, I want to know what the inside of this body looks like. So there's a really cool way of doing that in Sketch. You're going to go to Create, Project Include, and Intersect. And basically what it's going to do, it's going to, the plane that we're drawing the sketch on is going to intersect the body, and it's going to give you that sketch. And let me just show you. It'll be way easier to see. So I'm going to choose body because I want to select bodies, and it's asking me to select the bodies. So I'm going to click that. And I don't want this to be a projection link. I want it to be an actual sketch. So I'm going to leave that off. And I don't know if I explained that right, but how I remember this, or how I think this works, is if you have this checked, you still see the lines. You can see them right here, but it's not actually an editable sketch. It's just a projection of that. And if we turn this off, it actually becomes part of the sketch. I think there might be a better explanation for that. But let's hit OK. And now look, it took that plane and cut this. Now look what I forgot. I actually forgot to select this body, because remember, this isn't part of the lid. So it only drew the slice of the lid. So let's just do it again. So we're going to get Create, Project Include, Intersect, and now we're going to click this and hit OK. And now you can see it selected that as well. So now we can hide that body. So we can hide the lid and the little spindle here, and there you go. We have our slice. And now let's make those arms. So I'm going to hit L on the keyboard for line, or you could click up here. I'm going to create a line here, drag it over, and then I'm going to create a line somewhere in here. And I want to show you a cool trick. I kind of already accidentally did it, but let's say I wanted to draw a line that was in line with this. What you do is you go to the point and then drag over without clicking anything, see? And then it kind of lines it up for you. So let's do that. See, it's lining me up with that, so it doesn't matter, they're the same. But now if I click and move my mouse, it's right in line with that. Okay, so I want this to be a 45-degree angle. Doesn't have to be. You could literally be whatever angle you want. And maybe you do want it up higher like this, which would give it more strength. But just to keep things clean, I want 45. So you can see I can type in two little windows here. That one right below my cursor that says like 10.4. And then the one off to the side, that's the angle. So if you hit Tab, you can switch between those. So I'm going to hit Tab to that angle, and I want to type in 45 degrees. And you can see it switched to the other side, but if I just move the mouse, you see it switched back. So if I go over here, so now this line is locked at 45. There I just screwed it up, but if I hit Tab 45, you can see it's locked at 45. No matter where I go here, it's locked at 45. And I think what I did is I went back to center, and that deleted it, or that got out of that, right? So let's hit tab, 45 degrees, bring it over here, and then you can just snap it. It'll kind of just snap to that line, and then click the button. And to make this a little stronger, I'm going to just pick a spot. Well, might as well just pick this line, doesn't mean anything, and drag it over. And now if we hit the trim tool, we don't need this little line here. Okay, so now I have my profile of that little arm. So let's finish sketch. Let's turn the spindle back on. And now we want to create this little profile, sketch profile, into a solid body. So I've got a tool for that called Revolve. So if you click Revolve, it wants us to select the profile. Well, we know this is the profile we want. And then we have that selected. So we want to now select the axes. And I'm going to click on the Z axis. And you can see it rotated it 360 degrees. You can see right here. Well, we don't want that. We want maybe 30 degrees. How does that look? I tell you what, let's go up to 40 degrees. We got plenty of space in here. This is 3D printing, so you want to beef it up a little bit. And that looks pretty good. So let's hit OK. And actually, before I hit OK, always remember what we're doing here, join. So this new body that we just created, we're going to join to this body because it's visible. If we had turned this off, you see how it switches to new body because there's nothing to join it to. With this on, it switches to join. And you can always go down to new body, but just pay attention to that so you don't kind of screw yourself up. Okay, hit OK. I'm going to hide this sketch. And now we want 3 of these. So we're going to go to Create, Pattern, Circular Pattern, and it wants us to choose a body, but we don't want to choose a body because we actually it would work in this case because we would just rotate around the cylinder, but that's not good practice. We want to select a feature, and the feature was this revolve, and it recognizes this as a revolve. So you could just click there, or you could click down in your history here. And again, the axis it wants. And if you have a complicated project and you can't see this Z axis or one of these axes, you can actually just click on the circle you want to revolve it around. And that'll kind of act as the axis. And there we go. And over here, it says 3, which is already selected. So let's hit OK. And there's our little arm. And so let's turn back our lid here and let's turn on analysis, and there you can see, let's turn off analysis. I guess we don't really need that. And there is our center portion. So I tell you what, man, this is already 30 minutes long. My videos are just getting too long as it is. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more command here, and then I'm going to make this next part 2. So I'm not uploading an hour-long video. So and I'll upload that video rather quickly, probably by the end of the day or tomorrow. So, but let's just join these 2 bodies, right? We have this little intersection, and then we have the lid. So there's a modifier up here called combine. So you click on that, little window pops up, and it's wanting the target body first, then the tool body. So the target body is what you're doing something to. I want to add this to this, right? So the to this is the target body. So we'll click on that target body and it says 1 selected. Now it wants us the tool body. The tool body is what we are adding to it, which is that. And you can see we have them selected. And there's a few options here, join, cut, or intersect. We want to join, and we can hit OK. And if you look now, that other body disappeared and it's now 1 body. So let's do a little quick pan around, and let's go to the cap and turn on analysis. Okay, so that's where I'm going to leave off for this one. Gosh, if you've made it this far, I really appreciate you watching. Hopefully you're learning something. The next part, I will try to finish the rest of this this cap and lid, hopefully a little quicker maybe. Maybe you guys like this speed. And then I guess maybe for a 3rd video, I will do the threads here. And that way it's broken up and a little bit more manageable. And I'm no expert at these joints, but the reason I can create this sliding motion is I created this joint right here, a slider joint. I can show you how I did that. I'm not great at it, so maybe I'll have to do a few practice runs before showing you, but I'll go into that as well. So there you go. Here's my analysis off. A super basic cap we have started. So I will see you on the next video. Thanks again for watching.